Right, hello everybody, and welcome to another Noosphere podcast by us at Lightning Assault. My name is Nathan Leahy, aka the Mazer. Joining me today, we have Dan, aka Little Willy,
I like gold.
and James, aka the Mad Magos.
Weather.
And today, we will be convincing you, everybody listening in, why to play the Adeptus Custodes, the Golden Boys, the Custard Creams, the Banana Boys, the Custodes, the Custodes. I don't know what the official.
Custodes. I'll fight anyone that says it otherwise.
I think it's. I think the Americans have a different choice of how they would play those. But these are the Emperor's 10,000, the chosen favorite boys of the Emperor himself. They are a pretty good army as far as competitive goes. And with any army in the Warhammer universe, they have no shortage of means. But before we crack on, what are everyone's opening thoughts on the army in general? I know me and Dan play Custodes competitively.
I'll let James start.
Yeah, how does it feel, James? How's it feel?
How's it feel? I don't know. I mean, I like them lore-wise. Honestly, this is going to sound crazy. So years and years ago, before the models were out and everything, I always used to think, oh, Custodes, I'd love to do an army of Custodes. I'd love to convert my own models and blah, blah, blah. And then it was just one of them things that I always thought of do. And then the army came out and I was like, yeah! And then after the burning of Prospero, I think it was, where you got those in the Sisters of Silence, got all excited about them. And then they're still on the sprue.
Oh.
It's, I don't know, like, yeah, I tell you what, honestly, I'll reserve my judgment until Thursday, because apparently I'm going to be playing with the Manta.
Yep.
So we have to convince you today.
I mean, lore-wise, I think they're brilliant, and like visually, I really like them. I don't know, maybe it's just. Yeah, we'll see.
Are you? Do you feel like they are the missionary sex of the Warhammer 40k world? Are they too vanilla for you?
How can
no,
you?
I don't think. No,
you?
they're not. They're not vanilla. It's more just like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I've never. Like I say, I used to get really excited about them, pour over the lore, that kind of thing. The models came out, and I was just a bit like,
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's that. And I don't know why. It's just I can't put my finger on it.
It sounds to us like you need a bit of convincing as to why you should play Adeptus Custodes.
It's almost like this was planned.
Yeah.
In anticipation of your game next Thursday.
Spooky.
Yeah. Anyway, every faction has no shortage of its own memes. So historically, the army plays about 3 models, maybe 4. If you're at 2,000 points, maybe a few more. But even in the lore, they're sort of dispatched in 1s, 2s, 3s. So there's plenty of memes surrounding their or not them being surrounded. There's the is it from Rocky? The I don't hear no bell.
Yeah.
There's that meme, and then there's obviously the Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace, the film all about trade negotiations, where you're playing against 1,000 points of Custodes, which means they have at least 2, a jet bike and a singular guard.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, it's not far off. I think my 1,000 points list had like 10 models. No, 9. 9 models.
When we played the 500 point game,
7.
You had what? 4?
What was that? 500 points?
Yeah.
5. Whole 5 models.
Oof.
Yeah. And apparently they've completely broken the kill team.
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, they're not suited for that kind of.
No. I remember in Vanilla Kill Team, before they updated it to 3rd edition, everyone else could run like 5 to 10, maybe even 15 models. Custodes could run 2, maybe 3 if you if you bought the cheapest possible model, and they were pretty much impossible to kill, except with enormous volumes of fire, just to chip away at them. And from what I heard, so in 3rd edition Kill Team, models now have like wounds characteristics representing how tough they are instead of the previous system. And I think Custodes have something ridiculous, and I kid you not, I think they have like 28 wounds or 18 wounds or something like that, where a guardsman has 1. So
yeah, as it should be.
Yeah. So they're thoroughly well represented in Kill Team. Thoroughly.
So, who are the Custodes? Yes.
So we have a little bit of a lore intro, for which we have we've not paid James, but we've impressed upon him to find all the coolest lore on the Golden Boys. So what did you find, James?
Oh, no pressure. So, who are these 10,000? These men are my bodyguards. Their lives forfeit to the guarantee of my physical safety. Of their loyalty to me, there shall be no question, no doubt. I, and I alone, shall have the authority to stand in the judgment over them. No other commander shall they have in battle, nor in service. None shall bar them from me, and none shall hamper or stand their mission, or stall their mission, my apologies. So it is decreed. And that was the Big E himself.
In other words,
right. Tell
janitors.
him.
He's really hyping up his janitors.
He is.
I mean, they are the guardians of the throne.
They are. They are the Emperor's household. The militant arm of the House of Terror.
The shiniest, most golden, most buff maidens you'll ever fucking see. Or maids, correct, should I say. Housekeepers.
Yep. So, their origins lay at the very, 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 very beginning, before the Unification Wars. He was on tinkering with these Custodes before he set out to conquer Terror itself. But then he did. And apparently one of the earliest ever records of them was of one of the, what you call techno-barbarians.
Yes.
Who said that basically Big E, and I think it was 4 custodians in golden armor, basically took the whole place. Like, conquered the city, and yeah.
Just strolling in, all cool, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Like, bitch, we got this. So, yeah, and that was one of the very first records of them being known. So, as we know, basically the bodyguard, and there were the generals throughout the Unification Wars, basically commanding the Thunder Warriors. And at the end of the Unification Wars, it was the Custodes, along with the first Legion Astartes, because they were the first Space Marines, basically killed the Thunder Warriors to a man at the end, because they'd served their purpose. The Thunder Warriors, as some of you may or may not know, were essentially the proto-Legionnaires Astartes, and they were a bit unstable. They were a bit rushed. They were a bit screwed up in the head. A touch of the autism.
Yes, their angry dial was turned up to 12.
Yeah.
It certainly was. And yeah, so they were wiped out to a man. Apparently, as records go, the official records go, they all died in glorious combat on the final battle.
Of course.
But we all know the truth. It was Valdor and his ilk. Shot them down to a man.
I heard that they didn't kill every single one. That one or a handful, just a handful, like escaped and fucked off into exile, basically, and are hiding ever since.
You guys won't have seen this because it's not on my notes, but if you read The Outcast Dead, which is one of the Horus Heresy books, there's one in there.
Oh, okay.
And he's on Terra.
Okay.
In the Underhives.
Right.
basically being a big, I suppose the equivalent to a Necromunda gang lord. And he's been hunted by, I can't remember if it was a White Scar. I think it's the same White Scar who goes after somebody else. But anyway, yeah. So there is at least in M30 a couple still kicking about during the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
Whether there's some in M42, it's debatable.
They shouldn't be, because I think they have very unstable genetic material. They go a bit bonkers and are known to just kind of die randomly. So
yeah, they basically exploded sometimes. They got too angry and they physically exploded.
Yeah, they put World Eaters to shame, dude.
Yeah.
Enough of the Thunder Warriors. This is about the Custodes. So yeah, so obviously at the end of the unification of Terra, Big E signed a pact with Mars, out into the void to go, crusading along. And basically, the Custodes continue to serve as the Emperor's bodyguard and also his generals. This continued on as obviously they found the Primarch, starting with Horus and ending with, I want to say Alfaris.
Alfaris was first, even before Horus.
Was he?
Yeah, so the book
Alfaris was the first.
Yeah, so so in the official 40k
canon,
not canon, in the official 40k archives on Terra, Alfaris was found last, but in the book Alfaris, he was found first, and they hid that he was found first from everyone.
Yep, that's he started the blood games for the Custodes.
Yeah.
It was him who first started poking and prodding at the Emperor's defenses. He was the first victor of the blood games.
Yeah.
There we go. So was it Alfaris or Omega, or we're not just going down that rabbit hole?
It was OG Alfaris.
The actual Alfaris.
Yeah.
Or maybe Omegon. We don't know.
Exactly.
I don't think he'd met Omegon by that point.
No, Omegon was the last to be found.
Yeah.
Right. So Omegon was the last, not Alfaris.
Yeah.
There we go. See, you learn something new every day.
Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
Yep.
Actually, that's quite apt, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Games with great imagination.
Yeah, man. So as far as the Great Crusade goes, the largest public, and I say this in quotation marks, public battle, and people should know what I mean by this, was against the Orcs, where there was essentially Rogel Dawn, Horus, and Petarabel. And the three of them were attacking the Orcs, and getting their asses kicked. And Big E drops down to break the back of these Orcs, along with 1,000 Custodes. 1,000 of them. And basically bitch slapped the lot. Saved the three Primarchs, and that was that. And then shortly after that,
that's 1,000 Custodes versus what could possibly be billions.
Hundreds of thousands of Orcs. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands. I think the law is that out of the 1,000 that dropped, 3 were killed in combat, and the Emperor personally inscribed their names into his armor.
It's true.
That's just how much they mean to one.
Yes, they're definitely the Emperor's chosen. I'm pretty sure he said that he'll gladly sacrifice 1,000 Space Marines to save one.
Oh yeah, custodian. I don't doubt that. Don't doubt that 1 second. So yeah, so that was pretty much the biggest and the last battle, public-wise, alongside Big E that they ever fought. Obviously, there's more, but we'll go into that. And Big E turns around and says, "Right, boys, I'm leaving you to it. I'm going back to Terra with my Golden Boys. You just crack on and get on with it." We all know what became of that. So the next,
just a little footnote in history called the Horus Heresy.
Yeah,
yeah, just that. Yeah, we'll gloss over that.
Minor hiccup.
That the Custodes did pretty much fuck all to help anyone.
No?
They were busy fighting the demons, invasion.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, well, hang on, because I'll get to that. So the next major engagement after they fucked off back home with Big E was the war for the Webway after Magnus fucked up and brought down the psychic barrier on Terra that was protecting the Webway gate there. So other than that, and then a handful of them going off to get Magnus and drag him back along with Lehman Russ and the Space Wolves. That pretty much takes us all the way through to where they go up to fight on the Vengeful Spirit and fight Horus during the Siege of Terra. Yeah, this was a sad day. Not only because obviously the Big E was mortally wounded and placed upon the Golden Throne, but my boys lost Sanguinis.
There's allegedly a story that is allegedly that when Horus was about to smash Big E's puss, a lone custodian ran in and tried to defend him from Horus, and Horus just flayed the man alive in a second.
Yes.
And that was what pushed Big E to finally do his boy in.
Well, do you know what it is? There's actually two tales to that story, because one says it's a custode and the other says it was a lonely
guardsman. Yeah.
So what the hell a guardsman was doing on the Vengeful Spirit with the Big E?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think it's propaganda.
Imperial propaganda.
I think that literally is it. I think it genuinely is Imperial propaganda.
Yeah, it will be, because everything in the Imperium is the truth and everything is a lie.
Yeah.
Everything is propaganda for
everything.
Yeah.
So obviously at this point, Big E gets interred onto the Golden Throne. Unfortunately, they kind of have a big sulk and go, right, okay, we're not leaving the house. So the Custodes pretty much stay on Terra.
And they went all goth kid, didn't they? They dyed their robes black.
They got rid of the red sash. That's right. They got rid of the red, the gold, and the red, and they dyed the red black, and basically turned emo for 10,000 years.
Yes, they've stayed and went, well, we fucked up saving the Emperor the first time around, so we're gonna do it now. Trust me, guys.
Yeah.
Until your boy Gilliman was like, "Come on, guys, it's time."
Well, I was going to say they kept themselves busy. They did start playing kept playing the blood games and things like that, and occasionally they would venture off, or a handful of them might venture off Terra to, put down a rebellion or that kind of thing within the Sol system, shall we say?
To be honest,
pretty much by and large,
they were very busy on Terra because they are the only ones that are defending against the constant demon incursion from the busted gateway under the Imperial Palace. So they're constantly fighting demons.
And they're also keeping demons and all manners of monsters locked up in the vaults below Terra as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're doing all sorts of shady stuff.
Bearing in mind, at this point, though, they are they're the only force that's of Legion size.
Yes.
Because obviously at this point, Big Papa Smurf's broken out the Codex Astartes and split everybody up into 1,000 Marines a pop.
Yeah, but they're not.
So
they're not Astartes.
No, of course.
How dare you compare them to Amiga Space Marines?
I've actually, I've got a section on that. I'll come back to that.
Well, we've only got 5 minutes left, so you might have to move swiftly on
to
the
modern
day.
So, like I say, jump forward 10,000 years. The next big engagement is the Great Rift. So they go out on the Adeptus Crusade with Big Papa Smurf, dishing out Primaris rings to all the chapters like freebies at Tesco. The Great Rift occurs, splits the galaxy and you arsehole in two, and Papa G and the Custodes ride the shockwave back to Terra, just in time for the Battle of the Lion's Gate, which is essentially the second battle of of the second siege upon the Imperial Palace. This is where the Blood God Khorne, 8 of his bloodthirsters, and millions of bloodletters and heretics that are on Terra somehow all rise up and go crackers and head for the Infinity Gate. Basically, a force of the Custodes, Grey Knights, Imperial Fists, and Papa Smurf himself, along with some Primaris, swat them all back. Khorne gets very angry, and the 8 bloodletter greater demons of Khorne are left sucking his dick for however long going forward. And that pretty much takes us up to date as far as the timeline goes. Lore-wise, we've got 2 characters of note. We've got Valdor, who was the first and the greatest of Grandmasters, known as the first of the 10,000 and the shield of the Emperor. He was the first chief custodian and captain general of the Legius Custodes. Anybody want to chip in on that?
Yeah, I think a little thing of note is the captain general of the Custodes is part of the High Lords of Terra. So he's part of the governing body of the Imperium.
Yeah, and he's basically the word of the Emperor.
Absolutely.
Like, nobody can fuck with him. But
no,
in the latest books, people might be forced to fuck with Valdor, which I don't think they want to do.
Yeah, well, Valdor is he's got his own whole separate story, as he's no longer.
When to give people some background, when the Emperor was mortally wounded and interred on the Golden Throne, Valdor just fucked off, like immediately, and was never to be seen again. And everyone was like, "Well, what the fuck's going on here?" But in the latest book about, is it the Inquisitor series, the Bequin, they discovered that he was basically told by the Emperor that if he ever fell, that he needed to do whatever was required, anything that was required, basically, to protect Terra. And so he just fucked off into a little pocket dimension in the webway. Not webway, the what's it called?
The material?
The warp.
Yeah,
and he's got a gigantic ass fucking fortress, and he's breeding a shitload of demon hosts and blanks and shit to murder demons. And he's now called the King in Yellow. And the High Lords of Terror and the Inquisition kind of don't like it, and they want to fuck him up.
Yeah, well, they don't know his true purpose. In fact, nobody but the Emperor kind of knows his true purpose. Yeah. And what he's trying to do is find the Emperor's true name in order to sort of bring him back to life. Yeah. At least that's what is. I'm pretty sure that's sort of how the story goes. Yeah. So he's doing shenanigans, and in his place, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, can I quickly mention something that just kind of puts this guy's martial prowess into perspective? Yeah. This dude faced 30 of Magnus of the Red's elite Blade Masters. Now, the Blade Masters basically were gifted with precognition, so they already knew what you were going to do before you did it in combat. So, like, before you've even thought about swinging your blade, they already know you're going to and know how to combat it.
Yes,
this is why they were so badass. This dude, Valdor, killed 30 of them and sustained 1 injury.
He's a thick daddy.
We should probably put into perspective to people why the Custodes are such like grand figures, because I don't think we really explained why they are a step above Space Marines.
Well, they're the size of a Primarch, basically.
Yeah, the 9 foot tall. I mean, comparing, I've got a little section here. Comparing the Astartes to a Custodian is like comparing a butter knife to a mastercrafted power sword.
Yeah.
Custodes are, the whole process starts during infancy, where an Astartes is like a teenager, and is basically, you can think of the creation of Astartes a bit like a production line, you know, like things are ripped out, things are stuffed in. You know, it's all a bit temperamental, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. A custodian is kind of like I say, his process starts at like early childhood, so like toddler age, 3+, and it's basically it's master level genetic manipulation.
Yeah, so while while Space Marines are made by implanting them with all sorts of extra organs, the Custodes are made through they call it techno alchemy.
Yeah, so, magic, space magic.
It's not even magic. It's basically Dark Age of technology levels of genetic engineering.
Genetic manipulation at like a cellular level. I mean, yeah.
All except for Valdor, whose origins are mostly unknown. The only thing we know is that the Emperor took a huge legion to conquer across an entire fucking planet just to obtain Valdor as a child. And Valdor has no recollection of his life before that.
No.
But he literally obeys the Emperor to the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all Custodes are psycho-indoctrinated on top of being super chads.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much immune to any kind of warp corruption.
Indeed.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's as far as we can get on the lore before we go over time. Before we go on to the them on the tabletop, their rules, the overviews of the models and stuff like that, now is a perfect time for us to jump in. And if you would like to help support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/lightning assault. It's a nice and cheap monthly subscription, and you get a couple of benefits: access to Discord. You can join us on our podcast channel and listen to us live from Discord. You'll also get a custom setting on Discord as well. If you would like some commission painting, James, do you want to let everybody know where they can find that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Fiverr at Magos Paints. And also on Instagram under the same name, Mad Magos Paints. Just hit me up on either of those, and I'll be happy to discuss quotes, etc. with you. Thank you.
And for all these links, you can find them in the comment section below, or in the description of the video. If you want to buy any of the equipment we use, that's also linked down there. Anyway, back onto the Custodes, onto the meaty section, the more interesting thing. We've got the Codex, which is not quite as voluminous as, say, the Space Marine Codex. It doesn't have a huge amount of units, but they do have quite a presence on Forge World. Dan, did you want to start on the sort of the overview of the army?
Sure, can do. So on the tabletop, the Custodes are the epitome, the pinnacle of elite armies, excluding Imperial Knights, who are a whole other story in themselves. So yes, Custodes, a very elite army, very little models, but they sort of live and die by the quality over quantity rule. So instead of having lots and lots of models, they'll focus on very high survivability, very solid weapon skills, ballistic skills, extreme powerful weapons. Since they are the Emperor's chosen, of course, they have a creme de la creme in terms of equipment, so armor, weapons, vehicles, etc.
Yeah, and I think that makes them, monetarily wise, the cheapest army to build.
Yes, possibly. Excluding Forge World models.
Yes. So if you wanted to build a non-Forge World Custodian Guard army, I think it's about 60% of the cost of the next thing up. You can build a 2,000 point list out of sort of 4 or 5 boxes, I think, if I'm being generous, perhaps.
Yeah, so just from the Codex side of things, they don't have lots of models, and their kits sort of can be built into multiple things. So just a box of 5 Custodian Guards, which are their basic troops, That kit can be, you can build your custodian guards, the troops. From that, you can also build a captain, which is a headquarters choice. You can build an elite choice from it. So just from a pack, you basically got a patrol,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. They're decent kits as well. I'm a fan of the kits.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of the models and the aesthetic.
And since they are literally the golden boys, they're also arguably one of the fastest armies to paint, if you were so inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah.
If you were desperate to get them tabletop ready, you could just buy yourself some Retributor spray, some flesh tone, and sort of your basic blacks and your reds and stuff, and just have some of the plumes in the colours, and then the spear in the blacks and the silvers, and the rest of the body just in gold. And then you could build complexity of colours off of that base. So they're cheap to buy, relatively easy to memorize as an army in terms of stat lines, because everything's 2-up save, 2-up ballistic skill, 2-up weapon skill, and there's a lot of like consistency of statistics across the army, and they're relatively quick and easy to paint as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In terms of the characters of the army, shall we talk? Dan, tell us about the unkillable bike captain.
Sure. So are we going straight into sort of models and units of note?
Yeah.
I guess so. From a competitive aspect of things, like we mentioned earlier, the Custodes don't have a great choice of models, at least from Games Workshop. They have a lot more choices from Forge World, but I'm sure we'll discuss these soon. In terms of headquarters, they have a few choices. They have your standard captain, a captain on a jet bike, Trajan Valoris, which I don't think we mentioned in the lore section, but he's the current captain general of the Custodes. So the sort of meta choice, if you wish, for Custodes currently is the captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike. It's just an extremely powerful headquarters choice. He's very fast, very durable.
For anyone interested, he's made from the Virtus Praetor's box kit.
Yes.
But if you wanted to go for the style choice, you could buy the Forge World Gyre Falcon jet bike and build it out of that, just for some uniqueness, if you're into that sort of thing.
But Captain and Dawn Eagle jet bike, they are extremely fast, extremely durable. One thing that I don't think we mentioned in the army as a whole, the army is heavily dependent on stratagems. So if you like a lot of stratagem play that makes your opponent go, wait, what? They are a great choice for that, because what's better than having an extremely durable army? Stratagems that make them even more durable.
Yep.
So that they are fantastic from that side of things, but they do live and die by their stratagem use. On top of that, they have some pretty interesting choices in terms of warlord traits and relics, and that's what makes the unkillable bike captain on bike so interesting. So what you have is the ability to make him warlord. So you give him a relic and warlord traits to give him a 3-up invulnerable save, a 5-up Fiona paint, and then you upgrade them to Captain General for +2 toughness.
Yeah, Indomitable Constitution.
Sorry, +2 wounds. Yeah, +2 wounds, not 2 toughness, 2 wounds. So all of a sudden you got 14-inch moving, 9 wounds, toughness 6, monster of a headquarters.
2-up, 3-up, 5-up, 6-up in psychic, and he basically is a missile.
He is. I think one thing that people should know is his purpose on the battlefield is not necessarily to kill stuff.
Yeah.
People use him to sort of tie things up in melee, get across the board, score you points, keep the enemy army occupied.
Yeah.
while the rest of your army does other things on the other side of the board usually.
It can be a real nuisance if your opponent undercovers a objective, so he can because the entire army has OBSEC. All infantry and bikers have OBSEC. The only thing that doesn't is Dreadnoughts. So he has OBSEC, so he can quickly whip across the battlefield into your enemy's back lines, and if only all they've left is a couple of intercessors or guardsmen on a point, he can go in there, shoot them off it, fight them off it, and then hold it with OBSEC.
Absolutely.
And he's real hard to remove.
Yeah. It's quite common in competitive lists for people to run two captain on jet bikes. Again, both played in very similar roles. And just for the viewer, I'll go through the sort of warlord traits that people tend to run. So people will go for the Auric Aquilus, and that gives him a 3-up invulnerable save and rerolled failed charges.
That's the relic,
good. He'll also get Indomitable Constitution, which adds 2 wounds, and Superior Creation for 5-up Feel No Pain. And usually the other captain will have Eagle's Eye, which gives him a 3-up invulnerable save, and the Radiant Mantle for -1 to hit. So he's not quite as resilient as the Warlord, but pretty good.
It's close. Good enough.
Above average.
Yeah. He's, having 2 really fast, durable nuisances on the battlefield is more than enough. And obviously the reroll 1's aura.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Standard captain shenanigans.
Yeah. They do have some other notable characters. Obviously, Trajan is the Captain General himself. He's quite expensive. He's your source of reroll wound rolls of 1. And he also has a special ability where he can either, once per battle, he can either heal D3 wounds, fight twice, or make the next stratagem you cast completely free, which in an army where you live and die by your stratagems, it can be pretty clutch.
Yeah, a lot of people run him specifically for that purpose, so they can get the more expensive stratagems for free. For example, Stooping Dive, which is a very popular stratagem, which allows you to charge with a unit of bikes at the end of your opponent's charge. Yeah. That's a 3 command point stratagem. So people love to pick him with that just to get basically 3 free command points.
It's an extra phase of fighting in your opponent's turn. Yes. It's if you're a new player, it's hilarious and it will really screw someone's day up. But if you're an experienced player, a lot of people expect it, and so they adjust accordingly. The other unfortunate notable characters from the lore perspective is poor Valerian and Alea. They're from the books. They're coolish models, and their tabletop rules are surprisingly terrible. So they look cool. It's worth, subbing Valerian in as a HQ if you want to use him as a non-named character, but unfortunately their relics, warlord traits, and general stat lines are not fantastic.
No, they are from one of the Black Library books, right?
The Defenders of the Throne or something like that. Then you got your bread and butter guard. So the entire army as a whole is 2-up save and 4-up invuln, and then they have a 6-up feel no pain in against mortal wounds. And so so your bread and butter is pretty much your custodian guardians. They're going to be holding objectives. You can give them storm shields so that they're 3-up invuln save instead. You plant them on objectives and they stay there, and then the rest of them can march up the board with their spears or swords and shields, or you can run mixed squads of both. And they're pretty decent threats in melee. They got some stratagem support to make them extra deadly in melee. There's not much that Custodes can't one round other than huge hordes or like a monster that's got wound gating, like Gazgul. You can only deal 4 wounds per phase, that kind of thing.
I think one thing to note is, as a baseline for the army, like Nathan said, they have baseline weapon skill and ballistic skill of 2 up. Except for the bikes, all models have a toughness of 5.
Yeah.
The normal infantry have 3 wounds. The Terminators have 4. What else is of note in terms of their stat line? I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it. The weapons across the army are all the same. They have souped up bolters, and then it's a choice between swords, spears, and axes. Then into the elite slots. The fancy schmancy stuff we've got is there's 2 types of Terminators, one Forge World and one that's cheaper in plastic. So the cheaper and in plastic one is the Alfaris Custodians, which are your Terminators. I think, am I wrong in saying they're probably some of the best Terminators in the game, aside from Dark Angels?
They are very good. They are an interesting choice. I guess that people are still sort of not necessarily debating, but it's nice to have an option, right? Between your Terminators, you got the Alfaris from Games Workshop, and you got the Aquilon Forge World Terminators. The Alfaris are really interesting because they get some very neat stratagems.
Yes, they're your utility
very
pick.
neat rules. So one of the most popular thing to do with them is take them in a very big unit and use a stratagem called Unleashed Alliance, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Which allows you to split them into individual models. So if you take a unit of 6, all of a sudden you have 6 units of one Terminator
with
with objective secured, and it makes it very hard for the opponent to deal with the individual unit. Also helps with the charges, for example. So if you like teleport them in, if you deep strike them, and then you split them up, instead of having one roll of the charge, you have multiple
6
rolls.
chances to roll that charge. Yeah. And if all you're doing is trying to tie something up, it doesn't matter if only one gets in. He's not going to die.
No, probably not. Probably not.
They're also the only source of character targeting, I think, in the army.
Yes. Yeah. So they can target characters.
In shooting, and they're pretty good at it as well. They have little grenade launchers with tons of strats attached to them, so they've got concussion grenades, so you can't overwatch. So it sort of helps if you've got a lone Alfaris squad that isn't charging, but you have another squad that does want to charge. You can pop that concussion grenade so that the other squad that wants to charge in doesn't get overwatched. You got the I think it's the greatest strat in the entire Codex before Psychic Awakening, and that's Tanglefoot, which is minus D6 off your opponent's advances and charges, which is fantastic. It really screws someone up if they need a clutch charge.
They are the utility Terminators for sure. They can do lots of neat little tricks, while the Aquilon Custodians are your straight up just hammer. If you just want to hit something hard
and shoot,
absolutely, they just hit hard, shoot hard. They are the ones to pick.
Yeah, so they get, with some stratagem support, 1 billion strength 5 -1/1 shots, and they also punch knights pretty efficiently. And there's a stratagem that lets them +1 to wound against anything. So they're basically hitting on 2s, win on 2s against everything. They murder, but they don't have the use of the Alfaris strats because the strats are tied specifically to Alfaris Terminators.
Yeah.
But they're more killy, so it depends on what you want in your list. Should we go for? Are we going for Dreadnoughts or bikes?
Bikes are fast attack units.
Yeah.
But there's some more bits in the elite slot. So we talked about the Terminators. You got the also the Vexillus Praetors.
Ah, yes. Flagmen.
Which are of note. They are your buff unit. They are the flag bearers. You have 3 options of flags. 2 of them are irrelevant, and one of them gives a bubble of -1 to hit around them, which is pretty fucking fantastic.
And they can also deliver deep strike units within 3 inches of them.
Yes, they can plant with Exilla, which is a stratagem, which allows deep strikes to come within sort of their bubble rather than 9 inches away from the opponent.
Again, if you're a newer player or against a newer player, it's a bit of a gotcha moment. But against experienced players, they're gonna shoot that Vexilla if they can to stop him from getting close.
I mean, it's hard to shoot because they are classed as a character. So you
and they've got 7 wounds, and you can equip them with a 3-up invuln, so they can be just as durable.
Yeah, absolutely. You can give them a storm shield. They're a pain to deal with. And then the other type of elite units they get is, as Nathan mentioned, the Dreadnoughts.
Yes.
Peculiar choice. There's only one Dreadnought from Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Which is...
We don't talk about that.
Mediocre. I think mediocre is an overstatement. It's pretty poor.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Games Workshop actually forgot he exists for the Custodes because it's just been sort of left alone since the dawn of Custodes Codex.
Yeah, so they basically have the vanilla Contemptor Dreadnought from the Space Marine Codex. So it only has the 2 stock weapons, so multi-melter and like an assault cannon, and it's kind of poopy. But
it's pretty abysmal.
If you got the dollar and you wanna clean resin and paint some cool ass models, they have some probably the best Dreadnoughts in the game.
They are up there. They're up there. I'm not sure how they compare with some of the, with some of the Space Marines, but they'll probably take them on quite easily. So there's three Forge World Dreadnoughts that the Custodes have access to, and they are unique to the Custodes. They have the Achilles pattern Dreadnought. What's the shield one? I forget.
Galatus.
That's it, the Galatus. So the Achilles has a big ass spear that shoots and chops stuff up good. And he's quite fast.
He's the murder Dreadnought, the intense murder Dreadnought.
Absolutely. The Galatus is a sword and board kind of guy.
With the biggest flamer.
So he's got a big ass sword, big ass shield. So he's more of a defense option.
He's very durable. -1 to hit melee, and he's got a better invuln.
Absolutely. And if you just want to shoot stuff really good.
What's that? Sorry?
Sorry, can he take the sword and board guy? Has he got an option to take a big spear though as well?
No. So they're the same model. The Galatus and the Achilles are the same model. It's just the 2 different loadouts turn them into 2 different Dreadnoughts.
Right. I'm with you.
Yeah, and then if you want to really overkill in terms of Dreadnoughts, if you want to shoot stuff good, you got access to the biggest, baddest Dread, the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. Huge model, big guns, or big fists if you prefer.
Yeah, walking Land Raider in terms of stats.
Does he still have toughness 8?
Yep, T8, 2-up save, 4-up invuln.
Yeah, so that makes him the last Dreadnought to have toughness of 8. The poor old Leviathan Dreads for the Space Marines have been nerfed. They no longer have toughness of 8.
Isn't he bigger than a Leviathan?
Oh, he's huge.
Yeah, he's bigger.
Like, you know what I mean? He's a Chad.
I think he comes up to the shoulder of a standard knight.
Yeah, he's pretty big. They're pretty decent size.
And they've got a small variety of loadouts. They've got the missile pod on their head, and then they've got 2 guns to choose from and a fist, and you can sort of interchange them however you like. So if you want him as a long-range gun platform, you can run him with double guns. If you want him if you want to just punch fucking entire swathes of tanks to death, then you can run him with double fists, or you can run him hybrid with both.
Absolutely. One thing to note, I don't think we've mentioned, is the Custodes do have a stratagem called From the Golden Light They Come, which allows you to deep strike everything in their army, including bikes and dreadnoughts.
Yeah.
And with one of their sub-factions, one of their dread hosts, you can deep strike in and then get a 3d6 charge, right? Discarding the lowest result.
Yes.
So if for some reason you want to deep strike a double fist Telemon and punch something really hard, that's an option for you.
And then you spend more CP to give him 1 extra attack.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, do it. It's fun.
It's like flat 4 damage. So yeah. So he's a thick boy.
They murder stuff. They murder stuff. I would like to get one myself one day. They're pretty great.
Can I have 3 of them, please?
Well, people do run them. Not 3 though.
No, I mean up until recently, you were only allowed to take 1 in the army. I think they lifted that restriction.
Yeah. So the Dreadnought has been hotly contested by Games Workshop. It's received no less than 6 changes in the last 2 years. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, every FAQ, it's either going to be a buff or a nerf to the Telemon. They don't know. They can't seem to figure out its power level.
Yeah. At the moment, it's in terms of hardcore competitive Custodes play. You play a lot of Dreadnoughts, because they're so durable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure. I hope they just leave it alone. I hope they just leave the Dreadnoughts alone, because they're fine. They're just fine. In terms, if anyone's interested in terms of actual competitive scene nature, their win rate is 54%. So literally just above average. They are one of the most balanced factions in the game. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but unfortunately, in terms of league play, they are quite balanced.
Yeah, I think they're one of those armies where new players don't know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Because of their just resilience, new players just don't know how to handle them.
Yeah. It can be a bit daunting when you shoot a Dreadnought with your entire army turn 1 and it's still alive by the end of the battle.
Absolutely. Just for the people that don't know how to handle Custodes. The Custodes have a few weaknesses. Their main weakness is probably mortal wounds.
Yeah.
They mortal wounds spam, so something like Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, that can dish out lots of mortal wounds. They're pretty backbreaking. The Custodes rely heavily on their invulnerable save, above average toughness, above average armor saves. So bypassing all of that is pretty backbreaking. You could spend, you can use like your entire army to deal 3 wounds to captain on a jet bike, or you can just
smite him.
Or you can just smite him
with D3. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty crushing.
Yeah.
I think
on
one of our games,
their counters are armies like Grey Knights, Thousand Suns. Anything that has access to vast quantities of mortal wounds.
Yeah, I mean, some armies have access to stratagems.
Yeah.
But other things that they're weak against, because they're an elite army, they don't have the board presence that other armies do.
Yeah.
So they are easy to tie up. So you just throw your chaff units in melee, tie them up. That tends to be quite backbreaking.
Yeah.
If you tie up a Telemon, for example,
with 20
in melee,
20
with
of those
just some jank
Death Guard things.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be anything like, you throw away units, your crappy infantry. That's like a turn where the Custodes can't make use of like 300, 400 points worth of his army.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just because they have a really high quality melee, but not much of it. So a standard Custodian only has 3 attacks. So if you have a squad of 3 and you tie them up with 10 models, you're not going to kill them all, basically.
Absolutely. No. Oh, speaking of attacks, we forgot to mention one thing. So every Custodian has access to an upgrade called the Misericordia, which is a little dagger that they all have. I believe it's 3 points for every model, and that gives them an extra attack. And it's very nice, especially on one of their troop choice, the Forge World Sagittarium Guards. So they are the shooty troops. They got some big old guns, but giving them the Misericordia makes them pretty scary in melee and not something you want to charge.
12 attacks at strength 5, -1 damage.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Mm.
It's more than it's more painful than an assault intercessor squad.
Absolutely. Not to mention that they have pretty brutal shooting as well.
Oh yes, yeah. In terms of competitive nature, the army is quite reliant on Forge World. I don't think I've seen a competitive list at tournaments without Forge World, but they're perfectly capable of being run in non-competitive, in kitchen table games, and still do really well without Forge World stuff.
Absolutely. I think they're beyond playable. I think they're still very strong with just their base models. Just Forge World adds a lot of options, and it manages to cover some of the weaknesses that they have.
Can I just ask a question there? Do you still get to play the Sisters of Silence with them? I know the Sisters of Silence.
Yeah. So they've kind of tried to add the Sisters of Silence into the army in a few different ways. Before 9th edition occurred, they used to be able to bring them in a separate detachment that didn't require a headquarters, because they're in the elite slot, and they're still in the elite slot, which is a bit odd to me. I'd prefer them to be in the troop slot, because elite in general is quite a hotly contested slot in Warhammer. So the Sisters of Silence, basically, each squad that's within 18 inches of a Psyker minuses 1 off of the Psyker's psychic tests, and they can't be targeted by any spells at all. But in terms of competitive, you do see the odd list running Sisters for one primary reason, and that's because they're relatively cheap, because Custodes don't have access to cheap infantry. And they can perform actions and hold objectives. So what tends to happen in a couple of those competitive lists is they'll run 1 or 2 squads of Sisters of Silence with a Rhino. They'll keep them in the Rhino for turn 1 just for a bit of first turn protection, and your turn 1 they'll disembark, grab an objective, and do an action, whether it be rod or banners, and they'll just sit there at the backfield to prevent the enemy from deep striking in, or whatever, and then they'll just sort of send that Rhino up the board to tie something up in melee. So they do exist. You can include them in the army. Now you can include them in the elite slot in a normal Custodes detachment without penalty. But they're quite expensive for troops. They're cheaper than Custodes, but they're still quite expensive for.
Yeah, they're just a tactical tool at your disposal.
Yeah. In terms of competitive lists, they're all, like I mentioned, they play a lot of Dreadnoughts. And a lot of resin from Forge World. So
yeah, I think we forgot. I don't think we went into, so we got distracted by Dreadnoughts.
Yeah,
there are a few other units that are sort of cornerstones of Custodes lists, and they are in the fast attacks.
Oh shit! Did we not mention the jet bikes?
No, they are the Virtus Praetor jet bikes, and from Forge World the Venetari.
Yes.
Custodians. I can talk about the Praetors because they are probably my favorite unit in the army. I'm a big fan.
They're the iconic unit in the entire army, I think. They are the poster boys of Custodes.
Probably, yeah. I think so. And I'm a big fan. I think they're just... I know they're great. So they are just your standard jet bike model. They're toughness 6, 4 wounds a pop. They can be loaded out with either bolters or sort of melter rockets / anti-air. It's a dual profile weapon. And for the melee, they have their lances. And their main sort of purpose in the army is just speed. The Custodes, I think, because they're such a elite army with a low model count, they really benefit from units that can get across the board very fast and either engage or get onto points, tie up your opponent's army, that kind of stuff. And that's where the Virtus Praetors are key. They have a 14-inch movement baseline, and when they advance, they just straight up advance 6 additional inches. They can't advance the charge, unfortunately, but they go pretty fast.
Yeah. A nice little strat with the Virtus Praetors is if you're running the Unkillable Jet Bike Captain, you can run him alongside a squad of 5 for the reroll 1s. And if you use Archaeotech munitions on the bikes, if they've got the melter missiles, you get to reroll the d6 damage. So if you roll any nasty 1s or 2s, you can reroll those into and hope to get something higher. And then on the charge,
it's not a reroll; it's roll 2 dice.
Yeah, that's
the highest one.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry. And then On the charge, they reroll all wounds when they charge
Yes.
in melee. The strength 6 -3 D3 damage. And there's a stratagem where they get +1 to wound, as long as what they're attacking has a higher toughness than them. So, on average, 5 jet bikes with melter missiles kills a standard 24 wound knight after shooting and melee. So they're a very good surgical strike unit, but they are also the most feared unit and therefore the most shot at unit in the army, I think.
Yes, yeah, they'll be focused.
Yeah.
Just because they get across the board so fast,
Yeah.
they'll be your priority target.
Yeah.
But leaving them unchecked will ruin you.
Yeah, pretty
like
much.
if you ignore them, they'll ruin you. Like,
they'll completely dismantle your back line if you don't kill them.
Absolutely. Or even I think an interesting example was when I played against your Death Guard, Nathan. I just got across and I charged your tanks and tied up your tanks turn 1. And that was it. I think that was all your heavy support gone for the rest of the game. So things like that is what makes the Virtus Praetors my favorite unit for the army. I think Nathan, you prefer the Venatari, don't you? I think Venatari are the meta.
They're the competitive choice. So the Venatari are basically your average custodian guard, but they have backpacks. So they're kind of like assault marine. Is it assault marines with the jetpacks? Yeah. So they're basically custodian guard with jetpacks, except they have a slightly different loadout. So you can either take them with a spear, but it's a weird spear. It's got the normal spear stat line, but the gun on it is I think it's 5 -3 flat 3, so it does big damage. I think it's called a Drathic spear, and but they've only got a 5 up. Yeah, they've only got a 5 up invul if you take them with that loadout. So it's a little bit so better melee, interesting shooting, but they're a little bit more fragile. But the loadout most people go for is the Buckler, Tarsus Buckler, and Kinetic Destroyer. And the Kinetic Destroyer is a pistol. It's 6 -2 flat 2, so it's the perfect pistol for killing Marines and most elite units in general with 2 wounds. And because it's a pistol, you can use superior fire patterns on it. So they shoot twice with superior fire patterns, so they're getting 4 shots a pop. If you're running them in a squad of 5, it's 20 shots. Hit rolls of 6 get an additional hit, just score an additional hit. So it's just 3 extra shots. Hitting on 2s, winning on 3s against most elite targets. And most elite targets are probably saving on 5s, if not higher. They put out a lot of shots. They have innate deep strike, so you can start them off the board so they don't get shot. They move 12 inches, so they're fast as hell. They're basically the Custodes version of the Inceptor, except they have melee. And I think more shots. And I feel like people ignore them a little bit more than they ignore the bikes. So by virtue of being less threatening visually, I think people ignore them a bit more, which is probably their doom. But I would, in a perfect world, I prefer to run the jet bikes because I like the model more. But competitively, the Venatari are a bit more of a staple, especially against Marines, because the jet bikes have the D3 damage, whereas the Venatari have the flat 2, and you want that flat 2 against Marines and stuff, just to get efficiencies.
I think the big difference between the Venatari and the bikes are a bit more resilient, so they got that toughness 6, 4 wounds, while the Venatari are toughness 5, 3 wounds.
Yes.
So standard custodian baseline. They are better at killing sort of these mid-tier models. So, your Marine equivalents. While the jet bikes, you can either load them out to clear hordes, or anti-tank with their missiles. Which is sort of my choice. It's nice to have that fast, heavy support. They can take out a big target and then charge in. Well, the Venatari are better at dropping them in the back line and just really harassing sort of backfield objectives.
If you've played StarCraft 2, they're like those Reapers. Are they called Reapers? They're literally Reapers from StarCraft 2. That's basically their role. They harass people. pretty much anywhere and do as they please. And they're okay at melee as well. They're decent. They're
they're really
six
good.
-1/1 or something like that. Kind of like a Misericordia, but stronger.
I'd love to try a Custodes list with both bikes and Venetaris.
Yeah.
It's just for the speediest Custodes.
Yeah, I just run just one giant Outrider detachment with nothing but jet bike captains, a bunch of squads of jet bikes, and a bunch of squads of Virtus Praetors. I think that would fill up most of your
That would be
points.
amazing.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
It would be fast. You could really harass people with that. Anyway, in terms of actual competitive lists and sort of non-Forge World model lists, so I've dragged this off of 40k stats, and this is very similar to the list I use personally anyway. So everybody runs Shadowkeepers. So the reason for this is because they have a stratagem which every time someone's targeted in your army, you could spend a CP and you -1 to the strength of the weapon they're being targeted with, which is quite efficient.
It's pretty good. You usually use it so it equals
-1 to wound.
-1 to wound.
Yeah.
It's called Grim Responsibility.
Yeah. It's a really good stratagem, only costs 1, and it's kind of like the staple in your army alongside those transhuman physiology and ignore AP 1 and 2 for Terminators, turn off rerolls, stuff like that. You can make a squad just unkillable, pretty much, or miserable to target at the very least. So you run a Shadowkeepers battalion just for that strat. No Warlord trait or relic from that. Just the strat is just too good. And then some people will either run Trajan Valoris and a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike. So the unkillable jet bike captain with Salvo Launcher, Auric Aquilus, Superior Creation, Indomitable Constitution. Some people skip out on Trajan and add another jet bike, as we mentioned before with the Eagle's Eye and Radiant Mantle. And then in the troop slots, people run one squad of Sword and Board, so Sword and Shield, Custodian Guard, so minimum size squad of 3. They just kind of sit at the back and hold the objective because they're quite difficult to kill. And then 2 squads of 3 Sagittarium Custodians, which, as we mentioned earlier, they're the Shooty Guard. They have like an assault twin profile gun that can kill elites as well as normal troops because they have 2 profiles they can shoot at once. It's quite a nice little efficient gun platform, especially for some long-range firepower that the army didn't really have that mid-range firepower to begin with.
Yeah.
Then in the elite slot, you're running 2 Galatas Dreadnoughts, which is the Sword and Board Dreadnoughts. They're very, very durable. They're not as killy, but they do have flamethrowers, which allows them to get rid of chaff a bit more efficiently than some of the other Dreadnoughts. Then you run 1x5-man squad of Venetari with the Kinetic Destroyers and the shield, so the pistol and shield with that superior fire pattern stratagem to make them shoot twice. And then here, this is where people switch things out. So in this list, they ran 2 Telamon Dreadnoughts, mixed loadout with half gun, half fist, because they punch good. So that's your big Land Raider Dreadnought guy with the Iliastus is good at killing Marines because it's flat 2 damage, and the Castus is good for murdering everything because it's got a built-in flamer for chaff, and it's strength 16, AP -4, flat 4 damage, I believe. So it's killing every vehicle known to mankind. Some people, however, have started removing one of their Telamon Dreadnoughts to add a second squad of Venetari.
Speed is pretty crucial, I think. For
speed is king. Grabbing objectives midfield getting into corners and doing actions is quite important. So people are running, sort of sacrificing the durability of a huge presence like a Dreadnought and just going for that speed with an extra Flyboy squad.
Yeah.
Now, this is it's a mean list. I mean, me and Dan have played competitive Custodes list for a while. I know James has played against something similar to this list, not quite the same. And it's painful to deal with, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it is. It is. Except for, what is it? I think my list is similar to that. I think I swap out the Venetari for jet bikes. I don't run Telamons. I like the utility of the Aquilon Terminators.
The Terminators.
But I think the only things that really crushed me were Grey Knights. Again, the mortal wound spam was just too good.
Yeah.
It's very easy for them to deal with the harassing jet bikes, like the bike captains. Normally, you need a lot of effort to take them out, but Grey Knights and Thousand Suns can go, oh, it's fine. I'll just have one squad that smites you every turn.
Yeah.
It's pretty backbreaking. And then I think that was bad play on my part, but David's Sisters of Battle absolutely crushed me.
Yeah.
I've never been tabled as Custodes before, nor have I ever tabled an army of Custodes. That was terrifying. They have the ability to turn off invulnerable saves,
which kills the army.
Yeah, absolutely.
This kills the crab.
Crushes the army. It does kill the crab, especially when like everything in their army is like, oh, armor pen, a 4-up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
It still astounds me how much damage the Repentia do. Like when you look at the model and how big it is, and it's just a big chainsword. The strength and the AP and the flat damage is insane. So yeah,
but big chainsword, bro. It's a big chainsword. What more do you want?
Yeah,
it's not a normal chainsword. It's a big chainsword
wielded by an unarmored lady.
Oh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah,
it's irrelevant. It's a big chainsword.
It's anime. That's how. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But if you would like to run Custodes without shelling out for Forge World or selling your kidneys, they are totally viable without resin. You just might struggle a bit more in the competitive scene, but you can have a hell of a lot of fun without resin.
Yeah, it's a great starter army.
Absolutely, and it's really, really cheap to build this as well. So this battalion is again Shadow Keepers for that cool strat. And like I said, it's running 2 jet bikes that we've mentioned before, that Auric Aquilus and Eagle's Eye, and then Superior Creation and Radiant Mantle, and then the Indomitable Constitution on one of them for the extra wounds. And then you're running 3x3 Custodian Guard. And what I've noticed a lot of competitive players do with the Custodian Guard is they run 1 shield and sword in a squad of 3, and the other 2 as spears, just so that initial shot or initial damage incoming can have a higher chance to be saved on the shield guy, while your spear guys can make it into melee, because the spear guys are a bit more deadly in melee against most mid-range targets. And then 1 squad of 6 Alfaris Terminators, which are the utility Terminators. Decent character sniping. They can split up. They're pretty decent at killing both. They're pretty good at killing everything, really. Their axes have bolters.
Their axes are really good.
The grenade launchers can kill mid-range characters, and their axe melee will cut through anything pretty much. So it's got high strength, decent AP. You can increase the AP with a strat. You can increase your wounding with a strat. It's just a shame it's D3 damage, really. But they're still mean. And then 2 squads of Virtus Praetors with salvo launchers, 1 of 5, 1 with 4. If you wanted to, you could switch one of these out with Hurricane Bolters. So you've got 1 bike squad for killing chaff and 1 bike squad for killing tanks. But it's a pretty easy box to build. You just, what is it, like 3 boxes of bikes, 2 boxes of Terminators, and 2 boxes of Guard. That's it. That's all you need.
That builds everything. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a pretty easy list to achieve.
Absolutely.
And that's all she wrote.
There is one little section I think we forgot to add it, but I think it's worth adding for anyone still listening. We mentioned that Custodes live and die by their stratagems.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a good idea to go through some of the more interesting stratagems they get access to, because a lot of them came from the Psychic Awakening book, and that book really pushed the Custodes up, because they were pretty mediocre beforehand. So in terms of stratagems, as we mentioned, they have the From Golden Light They Come, which allows you to deep strike 1 or up to 3 units, isn't it?
Yeah. No, you can deep strike
as many as you want.
As many as you want.
Yeah.
The first unit costs 1, the second unit costs 2, and then so on and so forth. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
So that's doable. For the Alfaris Custodians, as we mentioned, you got Unleash the Lions, which allows you to split the models into individual units, which is pretty great. You got the Plant the Vixilla Homer, which allows you to deep strike much closer than you normally could. So if you want to bring down some big Terminators or some big Dreadnoughts right into your opponent's grills, that's how you would do it. The shooting phase stratagems are quite interesting. The main one is superior fire patterns, which allows infantry units that didn't advance to basically shoot twice with rapid fire and pistol weapons. And that's usually used, like Nathan said, either on the Venatari with their pistols, or I like to use them with the Aquilon Terminators with their Lastrum Stormbolters. So a unit of 5 Aquilon Terminators has 40 shots at strength 5 AP -1 damage.
Yeah. One of the few squads that can one-shot Necron Warriors.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, if you got a captain, or even better, Trajan Valoris for rerolling hits and wounds, it's pretty spicy stuff. They'll get rid of pretty much anything.
Yeah.
What else do they have? They've
got Transhuman, which can't be weirded on anything except a 4-up.
Yeah, of course.
It's called something different for some reason.
Arcane Genetic Alchemy.
AAA, I remember that. AAA.
Yeah.
Alcohol Awares Anonymous.
Points. Yes, 2 command points for Transhuman Physiology, which is basically they can only be wounded on a 4-up, regardless of the strength of the weapon. Another very spicy stratagem, and that's why I like using the Terminators, is Oromite and Adamantium. It makes them ignore weapons with armor penetration of -1 or -2 are resolved as a 0. Yep. So ignoring AP and saving everything on a 2-up is hella spicy.
There's a rare rule surrounding that in case anyone's ever cropped up against it. So with Space Marines and their doctrines, they get an extra AP in Tactical and Devastator for their weapons.
Yep.
So if you as a Custodes are being targeted by a Space Marine unit that has an AP characteristic of 2 or 1, you ignore the the doctrine, extra AP from the doctrine is applied after the stratagem. So if a Space Marine targets you with a weapon that's AP -2, you can use Oromite and Adamantium. The AP -2 becomes AP 0, and then the doctrine applies, so it becomes AP -1. So if you get targeted with I'm trying to think, like a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, you can use Oromite and Adamantium, ignore the AP, but then the doctrine then applies 1 AP onto it after that, so it then resolved with -1 AP. It's a weird interaction, but it's worth knowing because a lot of people would think that you're not able to use the stratagem because the weapon has an AP of 3, but it's not. The AP has a weapon of 2 from the data sheet, and then the doctrine applies the AP afterwards. So it's one of those gotcha things.
Yeah. What other cool stratagems they got? Eternal Penitent for the Dreadnought is absolutely crucial.
+1 attack.
So for 1 command point, you can spend that on all your Dreadnoughts. So for 1 command point, it gives them rerolls to charges and increases their attacks by 1.
Yeah. Makes them more deadly than they already are.
Yeah. In terms of other cool defensive,
they can turn off rerolls.
Yeah, they can turn off rerolls. That is called the Emperor's Auspice. It's pretty good. They have Ancient Artifice, which reduces the damage Dreadnoughts take by 1, which is pretty good.
And Dreadnoughts already have that inbuilt.
Yes. So I don't know. I'm not sure why they added it. I think that it was good up until 9th edition, right? And that's when it changed.
Yeah. They have Slayers of Nightmares, which is +1 to wound anything that's got a higher toughness than your fighting unit.
Yep. Grim Responsibility, which is the Shadow Keeper's specifically one, which you mentioned. So that's -1 to the strength of your opponent's weapon. Tanglefoot Grenade, absolutely crucial. That's your infantry can shoot this Tanglefoot Grenade. That reduces your opponent's charge and movement by D6, which is pretty bananas. What else do they have?
Piercing Strike for the spears. So if you want your spears to get +1 to wound, because they're only strength 6, so sometimes you can come up against something that will make them wound on 5s. But if you use Piercing Strike, it makes them wound on 4s instead, which is just a bit of extra damage. One thing I managed to catch Dan out with back in 8th edition was it's Avenge the Fallen.
Yes.
So if you had like a huge squad of something, let's say you got a squad of like 5 bikes or 10 guard or something like that. If your opponent kills like 6 or 7 of them, like in one foul swoop, you can pop Avenge the Fallen, which gives +1 attack.
One extra attack for
every model that has died on every one of your own models. So if 6 guards die and you've got 4 guard left, each of those guard is getting 9 attacks.
Yeah, so 6 extra attacks on top of their 3. So it's pretty bananas.
It's crazy. Doesn't happen often, but it's something worth keeping in mind.
One to keep in mind.
Yeah. And there's a couple of other utility bits as well.
Yeah, they got stuff like Nathan mentioned, Archaeotech munitions, which makes it so any D6 weapon, you roll 2 dice and discard the lowest result. So it makes the bikes melter rockets pretty mean. And
it affects the Land Raiders las cannons, but nobody plays it because it's terrible.
Yeah. They got burst missile net, which makes their flak burst missiles, which is the alternate shooting profile for the melter rockets, to reroll wounds, which is pretty good. They got lots of little tools. They're a bit of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to strategy.
They're a stratagem-driven army.
Very much so.
So James, how if I told you, because it's true, that you're playing that tournament list that I put on the PowerPoint with the exact tournament list, everything is exactly as it is. I have it all. I own it all. I'm handing it to you on Thursday. Do you feel confident for Thursday? No. How?
We have failed.
This was pointless.
What, honestly, all I can think of right now is Tanglefoot grenades, because I've got to remember that White Scars can advance and charge.
Yeah. It's not a bad shout.
Yeah, so if you're playing against White Scars, what stuff would you use? So Tanglefoot grenade, of course, very good. What was the competitive list again?
Trajan, unkillable bike captain, 1 sword and board guard squad, 2 Sagittariums, 2 Galatus, 1 Venetarian, 2 Telemons with hybrid loadout.
Yeah, so there you go. So superior. Yeah, so you could drop down your Venetari, use superior fire pattern on them, and absolutely murder a unit of something in the shooting phase.
Yeah.
Arcane genetic alchemy in case the going gets tough and you're being shot at with big weapons. I don't think you have any big weapons in White Scars, do you?
In White Scars, I've got one big squad of Eradicators, and that's about... Oh, and in Plasma Inceptors.
Okay, so against those, they can come in handy.
Yeah.
So they only wound on a 4 up.
So how many Alaris have I got?
None.
But I think...
None.
No Terminators.
No Terminators.
So no Auramite and Adamantium, sadly.
Oh, can I have some Alaris?
Oh, we forgot to mention there is one stratagem that is like pretty boss, but I've not seen people really use it, and it's going to come in handy against Space Marines and those Plasma Inceptors. Ever Vigilant. It's basically the Space Marine Auspex scam. So if your opponent deploys or deep strikes units, you can shoot them down -1 hit.
Oh, on a 3 up.
Yeah. Oh. It's just you shoot with your weapons at -1.
Not a bad shout.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Ever Vigilant is pretty decent. They also have a stratagem to make Overwatch hit on a 5 up.
Yeah.
It's not as relevant these days.
Mm.
But Ever Vigilant's really good.
Yeah.
Like, if you got like a unit of Sagittarium sitting at the back and your opponent is not aware of Ever Vigilant, they drop in whatever chaff, and then you just absolutely blast them. Because you can shoot both profiles with no penalty at that point. So it's pretty mean.
Actually, to be fair, the unkillable bike captain?
Yeah.
Is it worth spending 2 CP to give him Victor of the Blood Games?
It's an option.
Use a stratagem when you set up at the start of his character.
Yeah.
You can reroll 1 hit, roll 1 wound, roll 1. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 save.
And 1 save roll.
It's weird because you would need... So it costs 2 CP, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to use it at least 3 times for it to be worth it. I don't get it seen used much because with Custodes, defense is more important.
Yeah. You use it at the start and it lasts till the end of the game. So you can roll one of these dice each turn. It's just you have better things to spend your CP on.
Yeah.
So if your captain is like in a pinch, like re-rolling 1 save for 2 CP is not great. But spending 1 CP and giving him
-1 to wound.
Yeah, like grim responsibility or something like that is gonna make a huge difference. It's just not as efficient. I mean, he already has reroll all hits, right? Because he's a captain. So all he would benefit from is probably the rerolling wound. But he doesn't need that because on the charge he gets to reroll all wounds.
Everything, yeah.
And the rockets reroll wounds against vehicles.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
they're just a very reliable army.
Yeah, so that's it. So if you like elite, very reliable armies, Custodes are for you. Also gold. If you love gold, mama, get them.
Well, that said, we haven't really. I know it's towards the end, and people probably just start to switch off. But there are some nice alternative paint schemes because you don't have to paint them.
Oh no, you can Solar Watch in bright white. You can run Dread Hosts, which are dark. Is it jet black?
Yeah, I mean
Shadow Keepers.
Yeah,
I quite like your silver Custodes. Silver and blue is very nice combination for them.
So just on the off chance, if you're thinking, oh, this all sounds brilliant, but I don't want to paint gold, you don't have to.
Don't have to. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in it's your dudes. You paint them however you want.
Paint them however you want them.
Anyway, you have been educated thoroughly.
Indeed.
Hopefully this helped someone. It didn't help James. Right, anyway. Thank you everyone for watching. We hope you enjoyed or listening to the podcast. Sorry, it will be available on Spotify tomorrow. If you would like to join us for another podcast, you can join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. for the very same thing. I believe I have promised Alistair, our Grand Captain of the Merchants Guild, that we will talk about Necrons. We will tell people why they should play Necrons. Now that I've played them and understood how not to play them, we will now tell you how to play them properly. And for next week, in case you haven't heard several times on this podcast, we will be playing Adeptus Custodes versus White Scars on Thursday at 7 p.m. Do join us for that. It's going to be a bit of a role reversal. This time, James is going to be the pilot of the Golden Chads, or the Silver Chads in my case, and I'll be running my pink White Scars. So there's no color combination that matches anything in next week's game.
Hell yeah!
But yeah,
I'll sit behind the stream and play Diablo 2.
Yeah, exactly. Just have it on in the background. We wish we were playing Diablo 2 as well. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Mwah. Hugs and kisses.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.